Kirby Smart and the Dogs are sitting at 21 current commitments right now in the 2025 class, and I think they could be surging right now for some of their final targets in that 25 class. Of course, they had a ton of prospects, major commitments, major targets on campus this past weekend. You can read all about them over on Dawg Post. We have a visitor list breakdown over on the site, so make sure you check that out. But the two guys that I'm going to talk about specifically, I'm going to talk about who else they could sign in this 25 class as well, when they could be committing. But I continue to hear good things with Georgia and Elijah Griffin and Justice Terry, the two best players in the state of Georgia, the two best defensive linemen in the country. Elijah Griffin, 6'4", around 300 pounds. You should know all about this young man right now out of Savannah Christian Prep. He says he's a Pooler native. You know, he's not from Savannah, he's from Pooler, but he plays like a dog on the field. He's the number 5 prospect in the country. Again, the number 1 defensive lineman, 97 tackles last year, 31 tackles for a loss, 17.5 sacks. He is a game changer. And every coach I've talked to who has coached against him said he wrecked us. He wrecked us. There's no other way to put it. He is a truly elite prospect. I've said from the beginning, this will come down to Georgia and South Carolina. I think Miami's still in the mix. I think Oregon's still in the mix. Maybe Clemson, but we'll see. Right now, I think things are trending heavily towards Georgia. And I thought they were going into this visit, and I feel even better about that now after he was on campus again, from what I gathered. Everyone is talking about how Georgia is now kind of driving away in the driver's seat in his recruitment. Same with Justice Terry, a guy who was committed to Georgia, flipped to Southern Cal, flipped back, or not really flipped back officially yet, but opened up his recruitment like I told y'all he would. A physical freak, another interior guy who he moves like he's 250 pounds. He's like 280, 285, but he is lightning quick off the snap, can play on the edge, but he's going to be an interior guy, but he's got the quickness, the burst, the explosion off the snap to beat opposing tackles on the edge, but he's strong enough to take a center and a guard and just throw them backwards into behind the line of scrimmage and make a play. 78 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, 13 sacks. Dude attacks the quarterback, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. He's the number 7 overall prospect, number 2 defensive lineman, number 2 player in Georgia. You have to have elite defensive linemen if you want to win a national championship, and Georgia is signing those in this class. And now they don't have those 2 on the commit list just yet, and it might be a while. I thought there was maybe a chance they could get one of those guys to make a public commitment this weekend, but I think both will make final decisions closer to signing day. So there's a long way to go. Okay, I get that. There's 4 or 5 months until December. Where we are in the calendar, late July, I'm ready for the season to get here. Obviously, it's been a big summer of recruiting, if you want to say that. But Elijah Griffin, Justice Terry, my general point is that I've thought both would land in this class, and I feel even better about that after speaking with sources in Athens this weekend. So again, they've got 21 on board. One of them, Jaden Perlotti, was out at Southern Cal this weekend. A lot of Tennessee people thought he was going to flip to Tennessee by now. But, you know, Southern Cal is doing a great job with these Georgia kids early on. They did get Xavier Griffin, a 5-star outside linebacker out of Gainesville this weekend. But now there's a little buzz Jaden Perlotti might flip to Southern Cal. That would not surprise me at all. Most don't think he's going to end up at Georgia's class. So let's call it 20 commitments, right? And we'll see if there's one other that I'm going to mention on Dawg Post soon that may not stick in this class. But for the most part, the guys who are on board right now, just about all of them, I think will sign. So who's next, right? Juan Gaston Jr., a guy I've been talking about for years now. Saw him play as a freshman, knew he was going to be a big deal. And he is. He's massive. He comes off the board early August, I believe August 2nd. So within the week, I think that could still shape up to be a Georgia-Tennessee battle. And Tennessee has done a good job going into Georgia and getting some high-profile kids in this class. Can they beat out Georgia for Juan Gaston Jr.? That would be a big deal for the Vols. We'll see if it happens. Right now, I'm still sticking with my Georgia prediction. I don't know where he was this past weekend. I don't believe Juan Gaston Jr. was in Athens, but he's a guy who's always liked Georgia. He's always said the right things. But he doesn't want to be penciled into Georgia's class. He wants to, everyone to feel like he is open in his recruitment. And he likes South Carolina, and he likes Oregon. So I think Georgia sits in a good spot for him. And Damola Ajudon, a promising, fast-rising tackle out of Duluth. Crazy long wingspan. His best football is still way ahead of him. He's gained 50, 60 pounds in the last 12 months and has earned the right to, get these offers from Georgia and a few other, major, Power 4 schools. But I think he is leaning Georgia's way right now. So, again, there's a lot of in-state targets that Georgia's doing well. And there's a couple more guys I want to talk about. And I might dive into more Elijah Griffin, Justice Terry talk in a second. But first, gotta plug collegefronts.com, right? Halfway in the video. Let's go. Get your #1 Bulldog statue on the market today. Promo code DAWGPOST, DAWGPOST. Don't miss out on the discount. You can order it in the description below in this video. That's where you can order. Use that promo code. And this is the only place where you can get a discount on the #1 Georgia Bulldog statue on the market. Get yours today before everyone else does. Selling season is in August and late July, so we're in it. Get yours today before everyone else orders it, and you'll get it sooner, okay? So make sure you take advantage of that. An in-state defensive back to keep an eye on, right? Lagonza Hayward committed to Tennessee this past weekend. Jonte Gilbert, though, is a name. This is a guy who early in his recruitment early in high school had 5-star potential. He's a good player, but I don't think Georgia's been recruiting him as hard as South Carolina was at one point. Clemson, I think NC State is making him a top priority. And NC State is a respectable school, but we'll see if Georgia pushes for him and gives him the green light to jump on board. I think this might be August 15th. I think this is a mid-August commitment timeline. And right now, I don't see him in this class. Georgia's got some defensive backs already. Do they take another one? Do they feel that good about Jonte Gilbert and where they want to play him in the secondary to push for his commitment over the next 2+ weeks to get him on board? So that's something that will be interesting to see. He's out of Atlanta, Douglas High School. We went to that Douglas Mays game last year, 100 degrees. He was playing very well. Quintavious Johnson, who is on campus right now in Athens, one of Georgia's 3-star signees from the last class that people, I don't think, realize how good he is. He was 6'5", 250, playing running back, defensive end. Again, I was just sweating crazy in the stands just watching them, taking video. These guys were full pads, getting after it. Mad respect for Jonte Gilbert and Quintavious Johnson for what they did in that Atlanta Heat late August in 2023. But Jonte Gilbert is a name to keep an eye on who comes off the board in August. And then Shane Marshall is a running back to know out of Ocilla, Irwin County. Did I say that right? Ocilla, South Georgia toughness. This is a kid that runs hard, committed to Minnesota. He flipped from, I believe it was South Florida to Minnesota in mid-June. I believe he was in Athens this past weekend. So Usmani Kroma out of Lee County. I've said for a while, I think that's going to come down to Auburn and Florida State. He was at Auburn this past weekend. They did not land his commitment. Georgia, I think, is running third, still in the mix. I don't see him in Athens. But if they want to take another running back, if they offer Shane Marshall, a 3-star running back out of Ocilla, 5'10", 190, right tackle breaking kid with some speed, he becomes a guy to keep an eye on. At linebacker, right? What do they do if Jaden Perlotti does not, or it ends up flipping, like most people say, whether it's to Tennessee, whether it's to Southern Cal? They could continue to recruit Christian Gass, who committed to Tennessee last weekend over Georgia, or they try to push for Ty Jackson, who I think he's a high 4-star kid, top 10 linebacker in the country from Seminole High School in Florida. I believe he was in Gainesville this past weekend. I think he's going to stay in the state. So I have not heard a ton of buzz between him and Georgia recently, really, but we'll see, because they do want to take a second linebacker in this class. It can't be just Zayden Walker, right? I know they took some very good linebackers in the last class, right? #1 ranked linebacker Justin Williams, #3 ranked linebacker Chris Cole, Chris Jones, who I think is the top 15 linebacker from last year's class, could play inside, could play outside. And they've got Zayden Walker on board, really good player, but they want a second linebacker. Who is it going to be? Because a lot of these guys are off the board right now. So maybe they try to flip someone else. Again, Christian Gass is a kid that they liked. I think they would have accepted his commitment. But Tennessee made him a top priority and had been recruiting him longer and was pushing for him more than Georgia was. So Georgia kind of came into the mix a little later and tried to get him. And maybe they continue to do that. But we'll see where it goes. But there's maybe 5, 6 more spots in this class. And so just about wrapped up, right? Most of the guys who will sign in this class are already firmly on the commit list. But I continue here to hear big things. Elijah Griffin, Justice Terry, the 2 best defensive linemen in the country, both in the state of Georgia, and I think both are trending heavily to Georgia right now. Still a long way to go, but I would be surprised if Georgia missed out on either one of those kids. That's what I'm hearing. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you learned something. Get your Bulldog today, and I'll see you over on Dawg Post.